The silence in the marble-floored foyer was deafening. Marcus Thorne, a man used to bending the world to his will, stood with the casual arrogance of a king. Next to him, their maid, Chloe, had a smug look of victory, her hand possessively on his arm. And across from them was Eleanor, his wife of 15 years. She stood like a statue, her expression completely unreadable. Marcus let out a dramatic sigh, the kind he'd perfected for board meetings. "It's over, Eleanor," he said, his voice smooth as silk but with an edge of steel. He'd rehearsed this. "I've given you the best years of my life. I carried you. I gave you all of this." He waved a hand at the lavish home, a world he was now ripping away from her. "Now, I want to be with someone who actually appreciates me. Someone who sees the man I am, not just the comfort I provide." He pulled a thin stack of bills from his wallet and tossed it on a mahogany table. The cash landed with a soft, insulting flutter. "That should get you started somewhere new. The divorce papers will be sent wherever you end up. Don't contact me." Eleanor's gaze shifted from the pathetic stack of cash to his smug face. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes, not sadness, not anger, but something else entirely. She said nothing. Her silence was a weapon, and it unnerved Marcus more than any screaming match ever could. He wanted a scene, a dramatic breakdown to make him feel justified. Instead, he got a quiet, unnerving calm that seemed to mock his grand finale. Chloe shifted beside him. This wasn't the tear-filled victory she had imagined. For Marcus, the days that followed were pure bliss. He felt like a massive weight had been lifted. Eleanor, with her quiet observations and gentle reminders of her own father's legacy, had always felt like an anchor to a past he was desperate to escape. He saw himself as a self-made titan who had single-handedly transformed Apex Innovations from a stagnant tech firm into an industry leader. He conveniently chose to forget that the company was actually founded by Eleanor's father, and that marrying her was his golden ticket into the C-suite in the first place. In his mind, Eleanor was just a beautiful relic from an old chapter of his life. He and Chloe celebrated their new freedom, drinking champagne in the middle of the day. "Did you see her face?" Chloe asked one evening, snuggled up next to him. "Not a single tear. Just empty. Like she'd already given up." Marcus smirked. "What's there to fight for? She has nothing. No career, no family, money, no power. She only existed in my shadow. Now that I've stepped away, she'll just fade. We, on the other hand," he said, pulling her closer, "we have everything." He was absolutely certain he had won, but while Marcus was celebrating his hollow victory, Eleanor wasn't fading away in some lonely motel room. She was across town, in a sleek penthouse apartment overlooking the city, a skyline dominated by the Apex Innovations tower. She stood by the window, a phone pressed to her ear. "Is everything in place, Arthur?" On the other end was Arthur Vance, her family's lawyer for generations. "Yes, Ms. Vance," his voice was crisp. "The final transfer of the voting shares from the trust was completed this morning. The divorce filing triggered it, just like your father instructed in the original charter. You now personally and directly hold 51% of the company's voting stock. Your control is absolute." Eleanor closed her eyes. It was a power she never wanted, a secret she had kept for 15 years to protect her husband's fragile ego. Her father, a sharp judge of character, had seen Marcus's hubris from the very beginning. He structured his legacy to protect his daughter with a silent, invisible safety net. The blind trust let Marcus play king, but he was only ever a regent, ruling at the pleasure of the true queen. "He thinks I'm destitute," Eleanor said, a hint of irony in her voice. "His arrogance has always been his greatest liability," Arthur replied. "He can't imagine anyone holding power that he doesn't know about. He won't see you coming." "No," Eleanor agreed, her eyes fixing on the apex tower. He won't. Her calm wasn't weakness. It was the serenity of someone who already knew the final outcome of the game before it had even begun. 2 weeks later, Marcus was on top of the world. He was about to unveil Odyssey, a revolutionary piece of software he was convinced would make him a legend. The press conference was a massive event, packed with journalists, analysts, and influencers. Marcus stood at the podium, soaking in the spotlight. The Odyssey is not just a product, he boomed. It is a new paradigm. It is the future that Apex, under my leadership, is delivering today. As the room applauded, a stir started near the back. Heads turned. Cameras pivoted. And through the doors walked Eleanor, but this wasn't the Eleanor anyone knew. She was transformed. Gone was the elegant but quiet wife, in her place was a powerhouse in a sharp, dark blue suit. She moved with an unhurried grace toward the front of the room. Marcus froze mid-sentence. His brain just stopped. He watched as an event organizer rushed to escort her to a reserved seat in the front row, a seat saved for major investors. Chloe, sitting off to the side in a dress that was a little too flashy, stared in horror, her triumphant glow gone. Eleanor sat down, crossed her legs, and gave Marcus a tiny, almost invisible nod, as if to say, "Please, continue." The gesture shattered his composure. He stumbled through the rest of his speech, his powerful words now just a jumble of talking points. The energy in the room had shifted. The story was no longer the software, it was the mysterious return of Eleanor Vance. The second the event ended, Marcus cornered her. "What the hell was that?" he hissed. "Some pathetic attempt to make me jealous? To ruin my biggest day?" Eleanor looked at him, not like a heartbroken ex, but like a CEO evaluating an underperforming employee. "Jealous?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. "Don't flatter yourself, Marcus. This is business." "Business? You don't have any business here. This is my world. My company." "Is it?" she replied softly. The question hung in the air. "I'm merely observing an investment. Apex has potential, but I have to say, the current leadership seems volatile. Easily distracted." She gave him a pointed look, then turned and walked away, leaving him seething with a mix of anger and confusion. This wasn't a plea to get him back. This was the first shot in a war he didn't even know he was fighting. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's unease grew into full-blown paranoia. He was in the final stages of a merger with a rival company, Innovate Dynamics. This deal was his masterpiece, the move that would silence any doubts about his leadership. Then, the deal started to go south. Fast. The other CEO, once eager, was now distant, raising pointed concerns about Apex's high employee turnover and weaknesses in the Odyssey platform's design. These weren't vague worries, they were surgical strikes at the company's weakest points, things only a true insider could know. Frantic, Marcus couldn't figure out where the leak was coming from. "It's like someone handed them our internal audit," he raged at his team, accusing his most loyal staff of betrayal. Meanwhile, his personal life was also cracking. Chloe was struggling to play the part of a CEO's partner. She tried to redecorate his corporate office with garish furniture and embarrassed him at investor dinners with vapid gossip. The trophy he thought he'd won was turning out to be more of a liability. One evening, an anonymous email landed in his inbox. It was short and chilling. "A king who doesn't know the true source of his power is no king at all. Your foundation is weaker than you think. Check your charter. Corporate espionage." It had to be. He ordered his IT department to trace the email, never once considering Eleanor. He was so blinded by his own story of her weakness, he couldn't see the architect of his ruin standing right in front of him. He was looking for a snake in the grass, completely oblivious to the dragon circling overhead. The merger was dead in the water, and Marcus's reputation was in tatters. In a last-ditch move, he called an emergency meeting of the board. He planned to fire his head of R&D as a scapegoat and force through a risky counteroffer that he stood at the head of the boardroom table, the city skyline behind him. "This is a moment that calls for strength," he declared. "I built this company from the ground up with my own 2 hands. And I will not have my authority questioned." As he hit his crescendo, the boardroom doors swung open. It was Arthur Vance, Eleanor's lawyer. "Apologies for the interruption, Mr. Thorne." Marcus flushed with rage. "This is a closed meeting, Vance. Get out." "I'm afraid I can't," Arthur said calmly. "This meeting was called without the approval of the majority shareholder." Marcus laughed. "I am the largest single shareholder. Now get out." "No, sir," Arthur said, shaking his head. "You are not." He stepped aside, and through the doorway, Eleanor walked in. The room fell into a stunned, absolute silence. The board members stared, shock turning to dawning realization. Wearing her blue power suit-like armor, Eleanor walked past a sputtering Marcus and took a place at the head of the table, opposite him. Arthur began passing out documents. "As of 9 a.m. 3 weeks ago," he announced, his voice cutting through the silence, "Ms. Eleanor Vance personally assumed direct control of a 51% controlling stake in Apex Innovations." He let that sink in. These shares were in a blind trust, set up by her father, the company's founder. According to the original charter, a document Mr. Thorne seems to have forgotten, full control transfers to Ms. Vance in the event of a material dissolution of their marital partnership. "Your filing for divorce, Mr. Thorne, was the key that unlocked her inheritance." The truth hit Marcus like a physical blow. He hadn't built an empire, he had married into one. His power was never his own. It was a loan, underwritten by Eleanor for 15 years. His face went white. He stumbled back, grabbing a chair for support. Her appearance at the press conference. Her words, "I'm observing an investment." The anonymous email, "Check your charter." It all crashed together. He hadn't been playing chess. He had been a pawn on her board the entire time. When Eleanor finally spoke, her voice was pure, undisputed authority. Effective immediately, she announced to the silent board, "Mr. Marcus Thorne is removed as CEO for gross mismanagement and actions detrimental to shareholder value. His employment is terminated." She turned her cool gaze on him. "Security will escort you out. Your personal effects will be sent to your new residence." She paused. "I believe Chloe has already finished packing your things from the house. It's time for you to leave that as well." On cue, 2 security guards entered. Outside the glass walls of the boardroom, Chloe, who had been waiting to celebrate, saw the guards and her face crumbled in horror. Marcus finally found his voice, a desperate whisper. "Eleanor. Ellie, please. I was a fool. I'm sorry. I'll do anything." Eleanor looked at him, and for the first time, she showed a flicker of feeling, not love or hate, but profound indifference. "There's nothing to talk about, Marcus. You said you wanted someone who appreciates you. I've decided I want to be with my father's legacy." She gave a slight shrug. "It seems we both got what we wanted. Goodbye, Marcus." With a subtle nod, she signaled the guards. They took his arms and led him away, a dethroned king escorted from a castle that was never his to begin with. Eleanor walked to the CEO's chair, her chair. She ran a hand over the leather before sitting down, not looking triumphant, but like she was exactly where she belonged. She swiveled to face the massive window, looking out over her city. She didn't just get revenge. She reclaimed her name, her power, and her legacy. It had been hers all along that if you were captivated by Eleanor's rise to power, Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more stories of justice and ultimate revenge. What was your favorite moment of Marcus's downfall? Let us know in the comments below.